All right, content marketing world, how are you doing today? That was good, but I think we can bring it up a little bit more. How are you doing today? All right, let's get ready for some big ideas. My name is Joe Lazer. Formerly, when I was with Contently, if you saw me speak here, my name was Joe Lazowskis. If you want to know the full story of why I changed my name to my nickname and pen name, come up after. The short story is, one, father issues, and two, my wife suggested that we do it. I am the head of content and communications at an AI future of work company called A-Team. Also advise a very cool new content marketing technology company called Pepper that's here today. Recommend that you check them out. And I'm so excited to talk to you about why storytelling will be the super skill of the AI age. And to start, I want you to travel back with me a little under 2 years ago to December of 2022 when two miracles happened. The first is that the pilot of a TV show I co-wrote and co-created called Resignation actually got made. If you've ever tried to make a TV show, I promise you that's a bit of a miracle. It's also purgatory, working with Hollywood. But the more important miracle is that on a cold December morning, just a few days before Christmas, my son Max was born. Isn't he cute? And I'm sorry for the shirtless pic. I was really into the whole skin-to-skin bonding thing. To get past that, I'll move to 2 days later on Christmas Eve when, like a psychopath, I traveled back to our apartment in Brooklyn to get us both full Giants gear to watch our first game together. This kid is either going to love football or hate it. Probably hate it if you've seen the Giants play lately. But in that early light of parenthood, I grew obsessed with two things. And the first was the very primal human feeling of being a parent. Like, nothing had ever made me feel more human in my life than carrying my son in my arms. I never felt more like a primate. And the other obsession was generative AI, because nothing had ever made me more nervous and anxious to be a human. And listen, I'm a Jew from New York. I'm anxious about a lot of things, a lot. But this really took the cake. And in these early moments, very predictably, the swindlers and the zealots came quickly. As ChatGPT hit a tipping point of consumer interest that we'd never really seen before. I actually want to do a quick pop quiz to get everyone engaged. I have a prize of some socks, as well as a book for anyone, I won't throw the book, for anyone who can come up with the answer. Who knows how long it took ChatGPT to reach 100 million users? This is in the back. 2 days? No, but close. You got part of it right. Any other guesses?
2 hours.
Oh, it's over there. I'll give it a hint. The 2 was right. Who said 2 months? I think I heard one over here. All right. Here's some socks. It was a terrible throw. 2 months. So ChatGPT hit 100 million users in 2 months, which is 14 times faster than any of the social media 2.0 platforms that mid-millennials like me grew up with. You know, if we were on a tech rocket ship before, suddenly we're in a tech tsunami. And it got so big so fast that my 78-year-old aunt made ChatGPT the theme of her Passover Seder that year. I'm not even kidding. You can ask my wife. She had ChatGPT rewrite the 7 blessings. Why, I still don't know. And if that's not a sign that a new tech has hit a consumer tipping point, I don't know what it is. And predictably, all the swindlers and the zealots came quickly. These AI bros who preached the dogma of ChatGPT with an intensity not seen since they were sending Dogecoin to the moon. You know who I'm talking about, these guys.
It took me less than an hour to make over $240 using ChatGPT for free. You see, ChatGPT is this free online software that has 200 million monthly active users worldwide. But most beginners don't realize that they can use it to make money online. So in this step-by-step tutorial, I want to boil down what I believe could be the...
Who can guess what the hustle is here for another prize? It has to do with content. I'll give you that clue. It said blog writing. Yeah. Here you go, another pair of socks. So the scheme here is just flooding the websites with AI-generated slop SEO content and then affiliate links off of it, which is a lot of what's polluted the web to date. But the thing is that it wasn't just AI bros like that guy. It was analysts, business pundits, LinkedIn influencers, CEOs, all who predicted that AI would take the jobs of my people, storytellers, creatives. And I'm not going to lie, that this whole mantra or prompt or perish got me a little bit anxious. I worried for myself. I worried for my son. Would he grow up in a world where his creativity and his storytelling skills didn't matter? I worried for my friends. And so I do what I do when I get really anxious as a writer and researcher. So I dug into the research. I talked to future of work and corporate leaders. I had my team try out all the generative AI tools. And as I went further and further down the rabbit hole, I realized that a lot of the conventional wisdom was wrong. AI won't replace storytellers. Instead, it'll make storytelling the most important skill of all. And to explain why, I need you to travel back in time with me one more time to 2007. The year is 2007. Umbrella is the song of summer. Hipsters in my hometown of New York are wearing far too much neon. And this man, Dr. Paul Zak, is on an airplane back from a neuroscience conference. Now, Dr. Zak is a pretty impressive guy. He's about 6'5" with the chest-to-waist ratio of Mr. Incredible. And he's a neuroscientist. It's absolutely infuriating. So Dr. Zak is on this airplane, and he's coming back from a conference, and he has 2 young daughters at home. And he's trying to get all of his work done. So he's there in coach, and he's typing like a little pterodactyl, trying to get all his work done, when suddenly turbulence hits. And I'm not talking about normal turbulence. I'm talking about grab onto your armrests, call out for your mama, we're going down type of turbulence. So he does what a lot of us would do in the scenario. He turns on a movie. Lucky for him, his flight had $1 Million Baby, which just won the Oscar for Best Picture. And as he gets engrossed in this father-daughter tale, the world around him just melts away. Until suddenly he feels an arm on his shoulder shaking him. And he turns, it's the guy in the seat next to him. And he's going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." But that's when he realized he's been crying uncontrollably. And so the next day, Dr. Zak is thinking about this, and he goes into his lab, where he runs into a psychologist on his team. "Hi, Dr. Zak," she says. And he's like, "Whoa, why are you greeting me like that?" She says, "Because I'm a stock photo of a psychologist. And we all talk this way." And he's like, "All right, cool, makes sense." And so he tells her about this experience he had on the plane. And she turns to him and says, "Yeah, that actually doesn't surprise me, because psychologists use stories to change people's moods all the time." And that got Dr. Zak thinking, because what he and his team at Claremont University had been studying was a neurochemical called oxytocin. And we didn't know a lot about oxytocin at the time. We know that it was triggered when mothers were with their babies. It created a feeling of empathy and human connection. But we weren't quite sure what else caused it to be triggered. And so Dr. Zak had this theory of what if oxytocin wasn't just triggered, this love drug, as it's called, that makes us feel a very strong connection with one another, not just through being with one another, but also through stories. And that's exactly what his team found. His team found that great stories make our brains synthesize oxytocin, this neurochemical that triggers these feelings of empathy and human connection. And for this next part, I want to give just the simplest neuroscience lesson ever. So when we hear a great story, the neural activity in our brain increases 5-fold. It's like someone has flipped on a switchboard, illuminating the city of our mind. And neuroscientists have this saying that neurons that fire together wire together. So essentially what's happening when we hear a great story is that all those neurons are firing together, and thus they're wiring together. And that's why we are much more likely to remember something when it's told to us through a story than through a memo or a fact sheet. And so here we see that stories do 2 really important things. Stories make us remember, and stories make us care, which we think about as marketers, as sellers, as entrepreneurs, just at work. This is what we want to do. We want to build relationships with people. We want to make them remember us, remember our message, and we want to make them care. Now, this isn't a new phenomenon for us. Storytelling is our most powerful cognitive technology. If we go all the back to the dawn of Homo sapiens, for the early part, we were a very mid-rate species wandering the earth. Compared to our other hominin cousins that existed at the same time, like Neanderthals, our brains were actually much smaller, and so were our muscles. If you were a prehistoric bookie that was placing bets on which species would rise up to rule the earth, humans would have been way down on your list. But then something miraculous happened. We developed the capacity for syntax and vowel creation, and eventually language and the ability to tell stories. And this meant that we could pass down lessons to one another. If one of us learned how to fish, we could all learn how to fish. If one of us learned new food sources, we all learn new food sources. And it allowed us to build bonds that rally people together, not just in small tribes of 50 or 100 people, but thousands. It allowed us to build wonders together. It allowed us to rally people to do things like send a man to the moon with the computing power of a modern calculator. Storytelling, since the dawn of Homo sapiens, has been our most powerful cognitive technology. And that brings me back to this new world of work. So a group of future of work researchers and economists did this very large-scale study earlier this year that looked at how AI was going to affect the future of work. And one of the most stunning things is they found that 96% of a software engineer's current skills will be replaced by generative AI. They wrote that the technical and data skills that have been highly sought after for decades may soon be rendered obsolete. And listen, there's irony here. Because if you're a mid-millennial like me, I've spent what feels like my entire life hearing that a humanities degree is a death sentence, and the only sure thing is to go to a coding boot camp. But now we're in this world where generative AI can do most technical skills and tasks better than we can, or will soon be able to. And so the question that is facing me, facing my 2-year-old son, facing my friends, facing all of you is this fundamental question for this next age, which is what are our most human abilities, the things that we can do uniquely better than machines? Well, if you talk to those researchers, they point to the skills that we have long derided as soft, and 70% of C-suite execs actually now agree. It's things like communication, empathy, persuasion, collaboration, leadership. And if you look at all of these skills, there is a super skill that powers them all, and that is storytelling. Stories are how we develop greater empathy through reading and telling stories. Stories are how we communicate most effectively. They're how we rally together to work together and collaborate. Stories are the most effective way that we lead. And that's why I believe we are now moving from a knowledge economy to a storytelling economy, where the ability to tell stories will foster these soft skills, will allow us to build a loyal audience and tribe, both online and at work, and really be the super skill that powers this next stage. I love this quote from Scott Galloway, who on the Pivot podcast earlier this year said, if I could give my 13-year-old and 16-year-old one skill that would stand the test of time, it would be storytelling. And I think that's absolutely right. But the question that's facing all of us here, especially as content marketers, is, okay, but how do you break through? When it feels like every day you are screaming into a hurricane of noise, when you're competing with millions of stories that are buzzing in your pocket, how do you break through? And especially in a world in which AI slop that's polluting our social feeds and the web with more and more content and building that wave, how do you break through? And I believe that the key is to tell your most human stories. Because while AI can write, it can never be a storyteller. At least until it reaches sentience, at which point we're going to have a weird subgenre of memoir and nonfiction that's by AI. But human storytelling will still be really, really powerful and important. And to help you do that, I want to talk through, for the rest of today's session, a formula backed by research that I've done with different neuroscientists to help you tell breakthrough stories called rent. The idea is renting space in your audience's mind. And it has 4 keys: relatability, ease, novelty, and tension. So let's start with relatability. All right, so in 1992, this group of scientists at the University of Parma decided one day to attach some electrodes to the brains of monkeys, as we all do when we get bored. And they found something kind of startling, which is when a monkey did an action like holding a banana, the same neurons activated also when they saw a monkey or a human performing the same action. So they called these neurons mirror neurons because the same thing was happening. And what do you do when something works in monkeys? You test it in humans. Turns out that we humans too have mirror neurons. But this isn't just triggered when we see something. It's also triggered through stories. So for instance, if I tell you a story about how last night, after the speaker party, I got a little bit stoned and I wandered over to the San Diego Zoo and found myself in the tiger enclosure. And then suddenly, I was running through this fake forest, being chased by a pack of tigers, running for my life. And I really tell that story well. I sell it with my voice and my actions. Your brain is going to respond like you are being chased by a tiger through a forest. The same neurons of the storyteller that are activating the story listener. And so we're completely synced up. And this is why part of why stories are so powerful for connection. And this transference is called emotional contagion. And relatability amps up emotional contagion because we're most likely to feel this with stories that have characters that we feel like we can relate to, right? This makes sense. We're more likely to have this mirroring and this emotional contagion if we feel like we can relate to that audience. This is why when I was a teenager, I saw Mean Girls in theaters 3 times. It's why, you go to any teen movie, you'll see a lot of teens there. It's why my mom's favorite movie is Something's Gotta Give, with Jack Nicholson and Diane Keaton, and you will not see a lot of teens in the theater for that movie. And this is incredibly important right now with what we've seen the media trends be over the last 5 years in both media and marketing. We've seen the substackification of media where people don't really want to follow brands or even publications as much anymore. They want to follow people that they can relate to and that they feel that they have a strong connection to. If we look at the new content marketing funnel, essentially what success looks like now is creating demand through internal and external influencers. So those internal influencers can be someone that your target audience really relates to. It can be your founder, your CEO, your CMO, your CFO, your CPO, your CTO, as well as external influencers that have a strong connection to your audience to really build the top of funnel in the channels like LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, where your audience spends your time. And then really your website's purpose is more towards capturing that demand through product-led SEO once they're searching for what your solution actually is. This, for me, honestly, like when people ask me, tips on audience building and how over the last few years I've been able to grow my newsletter to over 150,000 subscribers and be able to reach hundreds of thousands of people on LinkedIn every week. Like the very simple thing is that everything that I write, I always lead with a personal, relatable story that I feel like my audience can connect to. That is, when it comes down to it, across video, across writing, is really the secret to creating effective content online right now. And you might think like, oh, this story isn't new, it isn't original. It is new because you are the one telling it. That's what makes the story new and unique. Some keys to relatability to keep in mind is one, from a strategy perspective, you really want to be developing those internal and external influencers that represent your brand and that your target audience can relate to. You want to share those personal and relatable stories that connect to big ideas. You need to let your audience feel like they know you. And you need to be authentic and real. Like, don't be that insufferable LinkedIn person. Like, resonance with your audience matters more than any sort of hacky reach. The second key is ease. So as a writer, this is something I say a lot. I'm no Hemingway. And when I was working on my book a few years ago, me and my co-author ran my writing through a grade level analyzer. It turns out not so good. Wrote it at 7th grade level. But then we ran Hemingway's writing through the analyzer and wrote at 4th grade level. So then we took all the most popular writers that we love, ran them through same analyzer, and what we found is that most great writers write at an elementary or middle school level. The ones that wrote at like a grad school level were awful self-published thought leaders, CEOs who no one's book are ever going to read. And the truth is that most consumers don't read at a high school level, but even those of us who do, we don't actually want to read things that are written at a really high grade level. A lot of brands and marketers, especially in B2B, conflate complexity and authority, but really the hardest thing is to break down complex ideas into clear, simple language that your audience can gravitate towards and really relate to. And this applies to video as well. So this neuro marketing company that I've worked with a bunch called Neuro Insight has done research on social video, and what they found is that an early story arc in your story, in your video, makes people 58% more likely to view it past 3 seconds. The presence of people increases emotional intensity by 133%. And just doing simple accessibility things like text or subtitles leads to 28% higher completion rates. So some key to ease that you can take away is that simple, clear writing and storytelling wins. You always want to hook your audience by leading with a story, even if it's a thought leadership post. That's what will bring your audience in, and establish clear stakes. Give them a reason to care. Our third key is novelty. So our brains light up when we see or hear something new. And this is actually another evolutionary trait. When we were in hunter-gatherer tribes, we evolved for our brains to have a reward system when we experience something new, when there is a new food source, when there's a new threat in our environment. Our brains release dopamine, literally rewarding us for engaging with these new things. And so when you're thinking about your content, so often it's very easy, right, to gravitate towards, oh, what are our competitors doing? What is the safe thing to do that's not going to get me fired? But I believe that if you really want to break through, you need to show your audience ideas, stories, tactics, humor that's going to stand out and make them take notice. For instance, here's just one of my favorite things that we made when I was running marketing at Contently for a long time. It's my favorite ad/short films that we made.
No, come on, no. Hello?
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 You alright in there?
No, I'm stuck between the 12th and 11th floor.
Yeah, what's your name?
Doug.
Hi, Doug. My name is Herb.
Hi, Herb.
I work down in the lobby, and I'm working to get you out. I just need you to calm down right now, okay?
It's so easy for you to say to calm down. I'm 200 feet above the ground, man. I'm hanging in midair.
Doug, I know what you're going through, buddy. I've been through worse.
What's worse than being stuck in an elevator?
Doug, I was in Vietnam. I was caught out from base camp. Next thing you know, I found myself caught in a snare, hanging from a tree upside down. For 3 days, Doug. No food, no water. I had a stick of gum that I shared with a monkey. Eventually, my monkey friend released me from that snare by gnawing on the rope, and I fell to the ground below, breaking my legs.
Oh, God.
But you know what? I crawled 3 clicks back to base camp.
How long is a click?
Oh, the Viet Cong just barreling down on me. So I'm gonna tell you one thing. You can do this. Are you with me, Doug?
It's just straight up impressive. That's all. I'm actually good. I'm calm now.
That's what I like to hear, Doug. Hang in there, buddy. Hang in there.
You're in now?
Nah, man, I'm only 30 years old. You guys made that up so that guy wouldn't pee in the elevator again.
So you don't have a monkey?
So yeah, it's like we could tell our customers that the power of stories matter, or we can make something absolutely ridiculous and novel and show it to them. But I think this is more important than ever right now, this element and this principle, because as we enter the AI age, the way that generative AI systems like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini work is to inherently kind of suck you into what I call the vortex of mid, this safe middle. And it's just how these things are built. Gen AI platforms are inherently an averaging out of all of the text on the internet that these companies have scraped, copyright be damned, and they are then fine-tuned through human reinforcement learning, in which, at these huge, basically AI farms in Kenya and Southeast Asia, they're just taught to gravitate and train the model back towards the safe answer. And so when you use generative AI, even with really good prompting, you're never going to get something that is truly original, right? You may get something that seems a little bit original. It isn't completely unoriginal, but it always kind of gets sucked back to the safe middle of conventional ideas. AI is really good at reproducing culture and ideas, but not really producing new culture and new ideas. And the same thing with quality. Like, yes, Claude can write better than almost every non-professional writer out there, but you're still going to hit this quality ceiling in terms of your content and your stories. And so, writing and ideation writing is thinking. So when you outsource all of your outlining and writing to AI, you're really risking getting sucked into this vortex. And so I'm not saying don't use generative AI tools. Like, I use them for research and productivity and copy editing. But if you want to put truly new and original work out there, you have to be really, really careful, because where breakthrough stories sit, where your stories have to sit, is in this top upper right-hand corner away from the vortex of mid. So some keys to novelty. Place yourself and your characters in new and unexpected situations. Using vivid language and humor in everything you write, I think, is one of the easiest ways to introduce memorable novelty into your writing. This is a sweep I do with every newsletter I write, of in the first 4 sentences, is there kind of a funny, vivid, memorable joke there that will capture my audience's attention, and pushing bold and new ideas. Beware the vortex of mid. And our 4th key, tension. So Aristotle once said that the key to a great story is establishing the gap between what is and what could be, and then opening and closing that gap again and again and again. And if you think about all of our favorite movies, this is what's at play. Think of your favorite rom-coms. The guy wants to get the girl, but then, and he starts to close that gap. But then what happens? The asshole fiance swoops in, and that gap widens again. But then he starts to get to know her, and he closes that gap. And then what happens? He gets drunk at the sister's baby shower and falls into the cake, and the gap opens again until finally everything works out, it closes, and we're rewarded with bliss at the end. The same thing with action movies, right? Danny Ocean wants to rob the casino. He gets all his friends together. They start to close the gap, but then something swoops in and messes it up. The gap opens again. This is the element of stories that make a story, that keep us at the edge of our seats. And this is really what ties your story together, is this conflict and resolution. And one of the best descriptions of this came in a video I stumbled upon from MTVU 20 years ago, from Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park and Book of Mormon, as well as Team America, World Police. And I think it's one of the best 2-minute lessons in storytelling that you'll ever see. So I'm just going to play that real quick.
Don't move.
Please welcome the Emmy Award-winning and
I'm nervous. I don't know why I'm
creators
nervous.
of South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. You think I'm kidding, right?
Hey!
Our whole South Park writers' room, one whole wall is one of these. And we've got it split up into 3 acts.
We have different colored markers just like here too. Look at
Yep.
We have that.
And I walk around with the markers like this, and we'll go, okay, we do a show about this.
This is our writer's room.
Oh, okay, well somewhere, okay, this would be a funny scene if we had
That's
this.
true.
Each individual scene has to work as a kind of funny sketch. You don't want one scene that's just like, well, what was the point of that scene? We found out this really simple rule that maybe you guys have all heard before, but it took us a long time to learn it. But we can take these beats, which are basically the beats of your outline, and if the words "and then" belong between those beats, you're basically. You got something pretty boring. What should happen between every beat that you've written down is either the word therefore or but, right? So what I'm saying is that you come up with an idea and it's like, okay, this happens, right? And then this happens. No, it should be this happens and therefore this happens. But this happens, therefore this happens. And that, as soon as we are able to, and literally sometimes we'll write it out to make sure we're doing it. We'll have our beats and we'll say, okay, this happened, but then this happens, and that affects this, and that does to that, and that's why you get a show that feels like, okay, this to that, to this to that, but this, here's the complication to that. And there's so many scripts we read from new writers and things that we see.
God, I see movies.
Yeah,
You see movies that you're just watching. It's like this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's when you're in a movie, just going, "What the f am I watching this movie for?" And just like this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. That's not a movie, you know. That's not a story. Like Trey said, it's those two, but because therefore that gives you the causation between each beat, and that makes that's a story.
Yeah.
So this is really crucial, right? Like these therefores, these buts, and we're introducing new conflict and tension, complications between the scenes. This is what brings our most favorite stories together, and it's something that you can apply to stories about yourself, that you can apply to customer stories, to case studies. A lot of brands, I think, feel a little bit allergic to tension about talking about challenges or what went wrong, but this is what really makes a great story a great story. So some keys to mastering tension: establishing that gap between what is and what could be, and opening and closing it again and again. Establishing clear stakes that make your audience invested in the outcome, and doing that as quickly as possible. And then using this conflict and resolution to tie your story together. Think therefore and but, not and then. Those and thens will kill your story. So the story brain checklist: relatability, really bringing people in through stories from characters that you can connect to. Ease, just clear, simple writing, quick action in your videos, getting right into your podcast. Like, don't do that brand pre-roll for the first 5 seconds because you think people need to remember this brought to you by your brand. That's going to kill all of your engagement metrics. Like, just get them into the story. That's what our brains are built to gravitate towards. Novelty, push new ideas, push humor, push novel situations, and tension. Open and close that gap again and again. And before we get to a few minutes of Q&A, I want to leave you with a thought. So my son now is almost 2 years old, and one of the most magical things has been watching him start to engage in imaginative play and be in this world of stories. And it's wild to watch because no one taught him how to do this, right? No one taught him how to go into a world of stories. It's instinctual. It's as instinctual to him as breathing. And I think as we get older, when we're kids, you know, we all feel like storytellers. And as we get older, we get self-conscious. We feel like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not a good storyteller. We have all these narratives that we tell ourselves. But the truth is that we all have storytelling superpowers. They're within every single one of us. We just need to tap into it. We need to hone it. We need to practice it. We need to tell our story. You'll be surprised how people respond. And I believe if you do this, the people at this conference, these people in this room are so well set up for this next age of work, because storytelling will be the super skill of the AI age. And I've never actually been more excited about being a creative and a writer and a storyteller. I recently quit my full-time job running all of marketing at A-Team to go fractional so I could spend more time working on my storytelling and creative projects. I feel like they're for an individual storyteller and creative. They're showing more platforms and tools, from Substack to Patreon to some of the Gen AI productivity tools, to really let us tap into that. I think that we can tell bigger and better stories than we've ever been able to. So let's go out there. Let's take this challenge, and let's tell stories that break through. Thank you. Easy way, please follow me on LinkedIn. There's a link there in the View My Blog button, because LinkedIn won't give you the subscribe to my newsletter button. To subscribe to my Substack, also my LinkedIn newsletter. I write about the art and science of storytelling weekly, so we'd love to stay in touch with all of you. Feel free to DM me with any questions that you have. But in the meantime, I think we have about 5 minutes for Q&A, if anyone has any questions. If not, I could do a dance or something. Anyone? Yeah, in the back.
I have a question about stories. What is a story you read about something incredibly mundane that really sticks out as good storytelling?
What's a story that I've read that's about something incredibly mundane that really sticks out? Okay, so I think the master of this is David Sedaris, who's my favorite nonfiction humorist. Because the thing about David Sedaris, he's written like 7 or 8 books at this point, and the first couple of books, like Me Talk Pretty One Day and Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim, like he uses all of his good stories from his life in those where things actually happen. But eventually in his later books, like he's mostly just an extreme introvert living in a cabin in the French countryside. But he'll tell these hilarious and amazing essays that are just about him like trying to keep this spider alive in his study, or getting obsessed with walking around town picking up trash. And just the way that he brings in, he crafts the stories, he uses like really vivid, funny language, he ties in the beginning to the end. He can take anything mundane and turn it into an incredibly immersive essay. So yeah, David Sedaris' work is the first thing that stands out to me.
Can we get a copy of your deck? Is that something that is?
Yeah, I think they're gonna do that afterwards. But if not, just like DM me on LinkedIn if you don't get it, and I'll shoot it over to you. Yeah. And yeah, right now. Oh yeah, you're just playing.
That's okay. No, you're not. I actually have a question.
Yeah.
For those in the room who don't feel like adequate storytellers, what is one thing they can walk away and do to become better storytellers?
I think is to remember that like your story matters more than you think it does. I think this is a lot of just like what it takes to be a good storyteller is just at bats at doing it, doing the work, writing, telling your story to, even if you have a small audience, if you're like 400 LinkedIn connections online, right? And try and find those little moments in your life. My friend Jay Kunzo calls this like your personal LLM, your personal little life moments that then connect to big ideas that you think about, like your industry or your work, or it can be completely unrelated. It can just be a fun story. But I think those at-bats matter. I also think that if you start paying attention to the role that storytelling plays in your life, like you'll see it everywhere. It's like, for me, it's like going into the matrix. You know, you'll see how most of what we do is tell stories to one another. When you guys like go to lunch later, you're sitting at a table with someone, chances are, if you notice, like most of the connection is through bonding through stories. If you go on a trip with friends, maybe there's some people in the group that you've met before. The entire currency of the trip will be stories. If you're trying to rally your team together, it's stories. So paying attention to those moments, what are the stories that people are telling? What do you really gravitate towards? I think that's really important. And if you do that, it also helps you develop taste, which is probably the most important characteristic you can have as a creative in the AI age, is to know when something is really good. And so just studying and thinking about stories will really help you do that. Sorry, that was like 5 things, but hopefully helpful. And yeah, take one more question.
In terms of momentum, when people already know that somebody's a good storyteller and they know they're about to get a great story, it's great. You know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if gathering people's interests in this world where there's a lot of different conflict and actually getting people, hey, go watch this, hey, go read this, you'll really like it. Yeah, maybe they will. But how do you get them to the point where they actually spend their time, stop scrolling, and go watch and go read?
I think part of it is just reps, right? Like if you do it once and no one engages, you can't give up. I'd say that, one thing that I've noticed in my career is that, the first year, 18 months of doing a new newsletter, doing a new project, your growth isn't going to be very good or very rapid. It's going to feel really flat, but you have to give it that time to see if you really, nailed your own craft and what you want to say and what you want to communicate. But then also just give people a chance to discover you, to share, to kind of build a sense of resonance with you. I think some of the most important metrics that I look at is not how many views or how many likes did I get, but it's am I getting thoughtful DMs after I write something where someone's like, hey, this actually really resonated with me, or made me think about the world a different way, or really thoughtful comments on a piece that I wrote. To me, that's what's really more important than the view numbers. I reposted a stupid screenshot of Ryan Salami, one of the FTX guys, changing his LinkedIn update to saying his new job was in prison, and that got 150,000 views. But whatever, anyone could have done that. That doesn't really matter. I care way more that if I write an addition to my newsletter that maybe 80 people liked, but I got 10 DMs off of it. So look for those little signals, right? Like, it doesn't matter if, like, don't get caught up in the numbers game. Don't feel bad if something you wrote has 2 or 3 likes. Like, if you reach one person, if you change their mind, like, that's the joy of this. Like, this is just really, like, freaking fun work. And so take kind of joy and ownership in that. I think we are out of time, but I will say that I brought like 6 copies of my book that I'm happy to give to anyone who wants them. So feel free to come down, and I'll give you one. Thank you guys so much for being here.